What would this channel be if it weren't for viewers like you leaving comments like this? I love this. I got a comment on a video I made called "Despite Jewish Genetic Markers on My Heritage DNA Test," and it goes on to basically say that I am not of Jewish or Hebrew descent despite what the genetic markers say on my heritage. Sup guys, that's the person who left this comment. I love this, and this is very helpful for me as I talk about such things on my channel. He says this, quote, "It is interesting how Jews may have thought of their God as eternal, or at least he went back as far as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and yet they have no real teaching on what happens after death or before for themselves. It seems they were only concerned with land," end quote. So I want to talk about that. You know, it's interesting because for Christians, 2/3 of our Holy Bible is what we call the Old Testament, which is what the Jewish people had studied and believed. So only 1/3 of our Bible is talking about Jesus, right? The new stuff that it goes beyond what Jewish people believe, unless they're Messianic Jews, of course. So it is interesting, and I have thought about that if you want to find out what Jewish people believe happens after they die, and you're looking at the Old Testament, good luck finding much about that. There's not a whole lot. You have to go to the New Testament, you have to go to the Jesus side of things to hear that information. And that struck me as odd, but there's something to that. There's a movie with Zach Braff, who is, I believe, we would say half Jewish. He has one parent's Jewish. But with Zach Braff, he is in a movie called Wish I Was Here, and they address this in the movie. He goes to the rabbi and basically asks what happens after this life, and the rabbi really just honestly can't answer the question, but he's direct with him. I don't really know. None of us really do. There's also an episode on Family Guy, which I saw the clip online on YouTube, where they go to spiritual leaders from different religions to find out what happens when you die. And when they asked the Jewish rabbi, he basically just kind of shrugged them off. They didn't really have a response. And in real life, I have asked Jewish people that I know what they believe and what their religion teaches, and basically it's a shrug. So what that tells me is part of a value system of the Jewish religion. It's not that important to them. That's not something they really think about or try to rationalize in any way what happens beyond this life. As far as us having a soul, what happens beyond this life, it's not really part of their religion. Contrast that, though, with the Christian religion, which is completely focused on how you, the individual, are not simply just a physical body, but you're more than that. You have a soul. You do have eternity ahead after this life that is based on how you live this life and based on the teachings of Christ and based on whether you acknowledge that we were all born as sinners, that we're not just good people. We try to be, but we're not. We all have this instinct to be destructive to others and to ourselves. And what I just said is very fundamentally Christian, and it sounds absurd to those who are not Christian, but that is what we believe. So not only do we believe and are very focused on eternity, what happens after this life, but we absolutely believe that that eternal future is based on how we are in this life, how we treat others, loving our neighbors as ourselves, and loving God with all of our heart, which you can't do if you're not loving your neighbor with yourself and believing and accepting that Jesus did die for our sins because we were born sinners. So if you can't get past any of that, then ultimately, then that's not Christianity. That's, you know, I understand in mainstream America, it's more of a watered down version that you just try to treat people right and believe in God and you'll be okay. That's not what Christianity teaches. Christianity is very much more direct than that on those issues. But in regards to Jewish people, they just don't, their religion, their faith does not seem to be focused on what would be after this life. It does, when you look at the Old Testament, it does seem to be very focused on land and heritage and that sort of thing. And I haven't given this much thought until I got that comment. I think there's a lot more to say on this, but man, it really helps me understand what a difference there is between the Jewish faith and the Christian faith. And I've said it before, in theory, it's like the Christian faith is a cult or a spin-off of Judaism. In the same way that many people would say that Mormonism is from Protestant or even Catholic Christian denominations there. So But it is interesting how Christians took Christians took Judaism and they made it about our sinful human condition and how that is affecting our souls after this life. The Jewish religion doesn't really seem to be focused on that. Let's talk more about that. I think that's a very interesting point. Despite how much of an overlap there is between Christianity and Judaism, there are some fundamental things that are absolutely different. So let's talk more about it right here.